Hello, everyone, and welcome back to What in the World is Dyscalculia, the podcast that is all about the math related specific learning disorder. I'm your host, Dr. Honora Wall, and What in the World is Dyscalculia is sponsored by EduCalc Learning, and you can find lots of information about dyscalculia and how we help people who have this learning difference at educalclearning.com. You can also go to www.thedtri.org and see what's new at the Dyscalculia Training and Research Institute. We do have a lot of new exciting things coming up. One is a relaunch of our online math classes for students with dyscalculia, fourth grade through Algebra 2. Adding pre-calc chemistry is out there and putting that out on our own platform, which will be Canvas based, so it's a very user friendly platform that you're already familiar with. And those should be live by the end of, really mid summer 2026 with that revamp. So we're very excited about that. Other exciting things, we're adding some new updates to our teacher training courses so you can become a certified dyscalculia specialist online at educalclearning.com today. And that's really exciting. The updates we're adding are a little more practice. What does it look like? A little bit of modeling, a few more activities, and of course, updating to include some current research studies. And some of those you've heard here on this podcast, but there's always more information coming, and we like to keep everything up to date. So that's really exciting too. And in the fall, we are going to launch a tutor specific training course, and that's really exciting. So, of course, it will include what do you need to know about dyscalculia, how do you help students with dyscalculia, and some of the key differences between being a classroom teacher versus being a tutor. How does that look different? How does it impact the work that you do? If you're on our mailing list and you've subscribed to the website, you're already getting updates about those things. And if not, you should hop over and subscribe and get our newsletter and stay in the know. But what I want to talk to you about today in this podcast episode is something that does come up in conversation, and it came up in a conversation with a math coach today, and I thought, I've had this on my list of podcast ideas. Let me get it out there. And what I want to talk about is the issue of learning your basic facts, learning those math facts, being able to add, subtract, multiply, divide off the top of your head at the drop of a hat. And shouldn't we be promoting all of this fluency and these great math fact memorization tips? No, we really should not. And I'm going to tell you why. A couple of reasons. First of all, if a student has dyscalculia, their parietal lobe is going to continue to lose math information over time. So you're pouring in these basic facts, and they have a tendency to pour right back out like water out of a colander. So we don't really get a lot of progress. We don't really see that that it sticks over time. So we're frustrating a lot of people, and we're not really helping them get anywhere, and we're not showing them how to support themselves when they're trying to do other work. Not all of math is simply answering what is 7 times 3. Math is, especially in upper level math, now we're looking at the processes of putting things together and taking them apart. That foiling and factoring, that factoring by GCF, that synthetic division piece where we're pulling coefficients away from variables. We're also looking at a lot of patterns. Of course, patterns in general. Also the patterns in linear and exponential growth, the patterns in trends over time if we're looking at different types of graphing and statistical models. the patterns and sequences and series. And so we're doing a lot of different things that these basic facts, if you have them memorized, it's a nice bonus, but it's not really the main focus of the work any longer. And um, students can really struggle with their basic facts. So when we treat memorizing those facts and we reward speed in our four operations, add, subtract, multiply, divide, we're really not rewarding the skill set that helps a person get through upper level math and science. The skill set that's required is a lot of pattern recognition, a lot of confidence in math abilities, perseverance, and persistence, because that's what gets us through problem solving. And of course, paying attention to the details of negative signs, exponents. Once we get into chemistry, the subscripts versus the coefficients, how does that help us balance equations, and little tiny pieces that get away from us. And that really brings me to the other reason why I'm not impressed if a person has really excellent basic fact recall. And it's a good parlor trick. It's nice if you can have it. Sure, it's going to make some things easier, but here's where it's going to fall apart whether or not a student has dyscalculia. That skill of recalling a data point of a math fact answer is going to fall apart when that student is overwhelmed, when that student is frustrated or struggling, when that student's cognitive load has reached maximum capacity, when their ADHD meds have worn off, when there's been a natural disaster in town, and now we've got a trauma situation, and that emotional piece, the anxiety, has overwhelmed recall systems. Those basic facts and that retrieval is the first thing to go and fall apart when we've been working so long and we're in minute 47 of an hour or an hour and a half test, and we're pushing through, and the focus has been intense, and our brains are just getting tired, and we're struggling to keep up with achieving the goal of finishing the homework or the classwork or the test in a certain amount of time. That happens a lot when we're not chunking topics on assessments. So those of you working for the companies who make those math assessments, read up on chunking and scaffolding. Do everyone a favor, please. But when we don't chunk questions by type and our assignments and assessments bounce all over the map from topic to topic to topic, that's exhausting. That really burns through a lot of mental energy. And as the brain is trying to conserve energy and use its resources wisely, it stops using them on recalling math facts quickly and accurately. What happens to the student in that moment when they have dyscalculia, or they came in with a weak math foundation or weak numeracy, or they have excellent math fact memorization, but the system is overwhelmed and they can't retrieve it accurately in the moment? What happens to the student at that time? Well, if you've done some training with them, some modeling, and set the expectations that they have to use tools to check their accuracy, depending on grade level, they have to go back to their 1 to 100s chart or their number line. They have to go back to the multiplication list, that old-fashioned times tables. They have to go into their calculator and confirm what they thought the numerical answer was. If they don't have that skill, and if they're not used to doing it, if it's not a habit for them, they're going to be in a world of trouble. The students who have gone through the instructional model of come up with your best answer and now you verify. Trust your basic math fact retrieval. Verify whether or not you were right in this particular instance, because there's a ton of things that could make you wrong. You make sure. If the student has done that a lot and they're used to it, then they're going to do it quickly, they're going to do it every time, and they're going to sail through classwork, homework, assessments, and even in an unusual circumstance that's really taxing cognitive load, working memory, visual spatial skills, mental energy, they're still going to be fine because they know to rely on their processes, their skills, and their precision, and not to rely on the parlor trick of what can they remember off the top of their head. It also is really important when we're doing upper level math and science, and the steps of a complex problem just take forever. You think fourth grade long division is a thing? Just wait. Just wait till you see some of the steps involved in a complex system of equations problem, especially if there are three variables involved. You're going to be at that one problem all day. Just wait until you have to come up with 5 or more points on an interesting looking graph with a long involved function with a few exponents involved, and you're really trying to get some pinpointed x and y ordered pairs. You're going to be at that table of values for quite a bit. In those moments, we need to already be used to verifying our answers. So in that space, mental math is not much of a help. It's kind of like bringing your favorite cup of water to a marathon or a walk across the desert. No, there are some better tools you can have with you. You don't want to go walking a few hours in the desert relying on your own spit in your mouth. No, you want to bring some water in a lightweight container that's not going to boil on your back because it's so hot. So having the right tools for a long journey makes a real difference in whether or not you're successful. Mental math, memorization of basic facts, really, really fun to show off in elementary school. Really not very helpful at all when you're trying to get through complex math problems and you're supporting any other learning challenges or challenges in the moment that might present themselves. So I don't really want you to spend all your time focusing on fluency in math, fact fluency in that memorization piece. Of course, you're going to have activities that support and strengthen that fluency. Of course, you're going to find whatever method works for you as a teacher and whatever's working for the classroom that you have in front of you at the time. Sometimes it'll be games, sometimes it's songs, sometimes it's books, sometimes it's getting one of those cute little blow up balls that you can bounce around the room and everybody has to answer questions. Sure, you're absolutely going to do lots of different multimodal activities that are going to strengthen that foundation. And you are going to have some kids who are great at memorizing their facts. That's fantastic. A lot of things are going to be easier for those kids. Not everything. So you also need to make sure all of your students understand the importance of checking their work, verifying their answers, writing down their steps, and doing the external work, proving what they think, not just relying on what they can come up with from memory. Side note, that's also going to be very beneficial to your students with low numeracy, weak math foundation, math disabilities, and dyscalculia. So, I want you to rely on skills, accuracy, dedication to precision, and I don't want you relying on memorizing math facts. Watch how you reward students' achievements and their work in class. Because if you inadvertently roll your eyes or say, well, no, we've got to wait while Timmy's got to look it up. Hang on, everybody, just a second. And if you then look at the student who's shouting out the right answer because their math facts are great, but they're never checking it, and you just go, oh, that's fantastic. Yes. Jill, you got that right. You were so fast with that. That's great. And now it feels like the pace of the class is moving on. And that makes us feel excited as teachers. It's great when we're getting through our lesson and we're hitting our pacing chart. But we're not really setting up our kids for long-term success, that longitudinal understanding of what's important as a math skill. So I want you to also reward the students who are being precise, who are checking their resources, and who know themselves and their strengths and weaknesses as learners, and they're using their tools properly. And please make sure everybody is using those tools. Even if they're doing a great job in second, third, fourth grade, they're going to hit a wall in math. Usually happens with negative numbers and those negative signs. That really is where it starts to fall apart for kids who have not had to pay attention to details and really be precise. So I hope I've given you enough reasons to think this summer about how to revamp the way you teach those basic facts. Of course, you're going to teach them. Of course, you're going to drill them as much as possible. You're going to see where the strengths and weaknesses lie. Use multimodal activities. Do not rely on them as the be-all, end-all of math identity, because they're not. And make sure you're also including using external tools to verify answers, to check your work, to create a culture of precision. And that is really going to take all of your students farther. And it's absolutely what's required for your students who have dyscalculia. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast today. If you'd like to know more about today's topic or anything else surrounding the math disability, neurodivergence in general, please email me at any time. I'm happy to talk to you. My email is Honora, HONORA, at thedtri.org. That's the easiest way to find me. Make sure you're following us on social media. You can find us on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn. Our Facebook teacher support group is a public group that you can join. We try to get this information out as many places as we possibly can. And I know I always say it, but we really are trying to increase the frequency and the consistency. So it's been brought to my attention that I might like to look at some markers of ADD within myself. And one of them is certainly problems with consistency. But we're always glad that you keep listening and happy to bring more products and services and information around neurodivergence to teachers, parents, and to students. Thanks for listening to What in the World is Dyscalculia, and we'll talk again soon.